Hi guys, welcome to Interior Insights. My name is Jane and I'm super excited because today we will step into the private home of one of Denmark's most influential designers. This house isn't just where Finn Juhl lived, but it also shaped his entire design language, and this is also where he created most of his incredible furniture designer icons. Come with me as we explore a Scandinavian Danish house that still feels decades ahead of its time and is an absolute masterpiece. If you love Finn Juhl or just Danish and Scandinavian design in general, you will absolutely love this video. Also, an incredible thank you to the Museum of Finn Juhl because they opened up their Finn Juhl house just for us. As soon as you walk into the space and home of Finn Juhl, you realize just how personal the space is. There's light flooding in through the windows and everything is just drenched and covered in this gorgeous light. The house consists of 2 blocks which together form an L, and within the space you have all of these niches and tilts inside the floor layout so that you have this very natural and layered floor plan. On the walls there are a lot of different artworks hanging because he loved art and he collected it throughout his entire life. And the entire home is filled with his iconic furniture designs. But because the space is so layered, it doesn't feel like a cold showroom. You could just really see his personal design taste and the way that he lived. Here in the entryway area, a sunken seating area in bold blue creates a cozy, almost cocoon-like corner. The built-in planter and glass shelving wall behind it really blur the line between architecture, furniture and decoration, and this is what Finn Juhl really was a master at. It's a perfect example of his holistical thinking that furniture and spaces are inseparable from each other. The house itself is located north of Copenhagen in a small town, and it is a bungalow that is laying inside a garden within a forest, so you have this very personal, dreamy atmosphere and the green that comes in through the windows. If you want to help me, you can subscribe to this channel right now so that we can continue to visit these incredible places and show you the best design in the world. Also, a quick update from editing this week's video. If you want more behind the scenes content and interior design tips, go follow our Instagram. We are already standing in the living room, and the living room has an L-shaped layout with different seating areas. Finn Juhl really loved to create these compositions. He really was a pioneer in the way that he saw design, and he completely revolutionized the Danish modern design. Because unlike other contemporary Danish designers, he always started each furniture item completely from scratch, only using the dimensions from his own body and figuring it out. And this is what created this very organic design, which is very sculptural and has a very refined aesthetic. And I'm absolutely in love with it because you can just get lost within every single piece. And whenever he designed, he always had movement and life and flow in mind. In the living room, we have 2 of his most famous furniture items standing opposite of each other. They're both kind of hugging and surrounding the fireplace. And on one side, we have the chieftain chair, which is one of his most daring and most famous designer pieces. And this chair is just an example of how refined his design aesthetic is. Because there isn't a single piece of wood that is straight, but everything has its own curve and it's dynamic and alive. And it really just reminds you of everyday life and of the movements, and I absolutely love that. Opposite of the chieftain chair, there is the poet sofa, and it has a much more feminine and elegant and softer touch. And it was actually designed for this exact house that we're standing in. So it is incredible to see the poet sofa where it actually was designed and where it was intended to stand. And I love that to frame the sofa area among the fireplace, instead of using a carpet to zone the area, he used bricks. But the bricks have the function that a normal carpet usually would have. But I just love this really unconventional and playful approach to design that you can see throughout the house. Above the poet sofa, there's a large painting and artwork of his wife, Hanne. Behind me, we have one of his offices, which was also a very central part of the living room. And this just shows you how central designing and working and creating his art was to his life. And you have his iconic drawers in monochrome blue colors and light pouring in from the windows. And also, I love it, there's a large pinboard where there's all of his sketches and drawing pinned upon. And it's just really fascinating to see because you basically get an insight into his design process. And it seems like he just left for a stroll in the garden and he will be back any second. Hold up, let's do a quick color analysis of this incredible living room. So what is so incredible about this iconic living room is that the entire living room lives in really warm colors and warm tones. It basically consists of a family of warm browns, soft cognac colors, beige, taupes, and off-white, and also a muted sage. And this just creates this perfect balance and sophisticated color palette. Now, what Finn Juhl loved to do, and you'll notice this in all of the existing rooms in this house, is that he loved to paint the ceilings. And so the ceiling in the living room has been painted in this soft mustard yellow tint. And it just creates this feeling like the sun is flooding into the room and it kind of hugs you and just drenches everything in this very warm and loving glow. And if we were to name the color palette of this living room, it would definitely be a warm analog color palette that is disrupted with a few pops of cooler, more bluish and colder colors. And so this living room just perfectly portrays the 70-20-10 rule that I always talk about. If you want to learn more about this rule and also the 5 mistakes that 90% of people make when it comes to color, you can get my free guide where I show you also how to fix all of these mistakes. If your color game is already great, then you are one of the few people, because it is literally the #1 thing that people ask me. It won't be free forever, so do yourself and the guests who visit you a favor and get the free guide. You can get it either by clicking the link in the description or by scanning this QR code by taking out your phone, opening the camera app and pointing it at the QR code, and it will redirect you and give it to you. It's completely free. This room, his living room and workspace, is the perfect example of his incredible design. The light flows in through the large windows, connecting the interiors with the outside gardens, and you just have this connection of the indoors and outdoors. Every surface, every color is carefully chosen to balance harmony and contrast. And I feel like what makes this house so fascinating is that it isn't just about furniture, but it really is about atmosphere. Finn Juhl designed the spaces to really speak to all of our senses. Another striking thing that you can really see in this house is how intertwined Scandinavian and Japanese design are with each other. Of course, Japanese design is much more minimalist and even more reduced, but throughout the house you have all of these Japanese vases, sculptures, and lots of art and inspiration. And you can just really see that Finn Juhl took a lot of inspiration. For example, the sliding doors that we have throughout the house are also Japanese inspired, and this is just a great example of how intertwined the two design aesthetics are. There even is the Japan chair that he created. Let me show you. So what makes this house so unique, and what really again just shows the way that he approached design, is that you always have these long visual axes where you can look, and they're always facing a window, so you always have the light pouring in from the end. And it just creates an absolutely unique, one-of-a-kind situation because you always feel connected to the outside. And here we are again in the entry area. So over here we have his famous Japan chair standing, and it was actually designed for a Japanese meeting. And so he just really took inspiration from the Japanese aesthetic, and you can really see this in his design, that it is much more reduced and the lines are much sleeker and much more clear than, for example, say his chieftain chair. And I really love that he just always took inspiration from the different countries and cultures and translated them into his own design language. Now follow me into the second part of the house. So, like I mentioned, we always have these large visual axes, and over here we can actually go a few steps forward. Over here is the dining room area, and it is a very understated design that is very simple and just stays true to the Scandinavian design language. There's the Egyptian chair that Finn Juhl designed. He loved his house to always change and just always adjust to where he was in his life. So throughout his years, I think he lived here for like 43 years, which is quite long. Throughout his life, he always exchanged the furniture pieces whenever he designed new ones. So the Egyptian chairs are the ones who were standing here last. What I really noticed and fell in love with upon entering the house is that it just has this incredible sense of warmth, and it really feels like a loving home. And I think that in the dining room area, we can really get a sense of why, because we have all of these natural wooden tones that are being used, sometimes even in the ceiling. And also here, there's all of these really warm and heartful colors. This lamp is designed by Arne Jacobsen, and you can see that lamps is something that Finn Juhl liked to take from his friends and other fellow designers. And it is a very unique lamp. There's only 12 of these lamps in the entire world, and one of them hangs in this house. So it is super special, and I'm really thankful to be able to see it here live today. As we come from the dining area, over here we have the kitchen. And the kitchen really is an example of this Scandinavian reduction to the essentials. We have an almost entirely white, quite narrow room layout, and the kitchen cabinets are all made from this wood that has been painted white. So the kitchen is a space just reduced to its bare essentials. There's a stainless steel countertop that goes from one side all the way to the other side of the room, and the only colorful accents that we have is of course the food that's being prepared, but at the same time, the green of the outside that comes in and turns into a piece of art. And whenever you're washing your dishes here, you can look outside into your own little forest. You wanted the interiors to feel like flowing transitions and not like closed boxes that you're trapped in. So right now we are already in the second part of the L, and this is the sleeping area. Through a narrow hallway that again just shines light into the green of the outside, we come into the master bedroom. The hallway is lined with Juhl's signature shelving system, carrying books, art, and playful wooden figures from all over the world. This perspective really leads the eye through the sequence of the rooms, each opening up towards the garden. And this layering of space is very characteristic of Juhl. And this is just a dream of a primary bedroom. The space is super large. There's a lot of space. On one side, there's a wooden bed with a very low profile that has also been designed by Finn Juhl, and it is kept in these two different shades of blue. And it is accompanied by two of his desk drawers, one's in warm tones and one's in cool tones. And they just create this very playful atmosphere because I love that they just have so many different colors. We have a large seating area and a large table, and I think that this is actually one of the only rooms that has a furniture designer piece that wasn't designed by himself. This lamp is by Paul Henningsen, and you might have seen similar ones like this, but this one actually is the prototype, and it only exists one time in the world, and it is over here. And it has these special nooks and wires on the top, so you can actually adjust the height, and you won't believe the price of this lamp. It is over 250,000 euros or dollars, and it absolutely blows my mind. Comment below if you think the price is justified or not. I personally think it kind of is, because Paul Henningsen is an absolute master of light, and he dedicated his entire life basically to creating these timeless lamps and figuring out how to manipulate light so that you just achieve this perfect light effect that he wanted. And on one wall we have the iconic shelving system by Finn Juhl, and it is filled and overflowing with books, and you can really see and get a sense of how him and his family lived here and what kind of lifestyle they had. And I think it's so magical that these spaces are preserved. I'm also really thankful that we get to be here today because the museum opened up this house today just for us, so we can make a video about it. So big thank you. Now let's go into the guest bedroom or kids' bedroom. Over here is the guest bedroom, and I love that even though this room is basically almost empty, it still doesn't feel tight, but it actually feels very expansive. And I think the reason why it is this way is because the walls are quite high and the ceiling has been painted in this green color that just adds this very mystical layer to it. And inside the green ceiling, there's a light shaft that just lets the light flood in from above, so the space is illuminated. There's a large window. And I really love the simplicity inside this room. There's a simple wooden bed in the center. It has a very low profile, and it also really just reminds me of the Japanese aesthetic. There's also a Japanese small seating bench next to it. And instead of a headboard, one entire wall has been covered in this soft brown strong fiber fabric that just creates this very tactile and comfortable design. And instead of having bedside tables, to one side there is a small box where you can store your clothes while you're visiting, and on the other side there's just this gorgeous antique sculpture that has been put on a small piece of wood, and it's just a very symbolic thing to do. And of course, on every single wall there's an artwork that just lets your senses wander. Of course, Finn Juhl didn't just have an office inside his living room, but he also had his proper office that was dedicated just to his work. Anyway, I kind of have the feeling, because in every single room inside this apartment there's always a large table, and I'm wondering if he liked to work in the different areas, sometimes in his bedroom, sometimes in his living room, sometimes in his private office, because I wouldn't know why else he needed so many different tables. If you know the answer, comment below. I'd be super interested to know. The office is one long, narrow room that has a large table spanning from one side to the other side. One entire wall has been turned into a pinboard, and you can see different sources of inspiration as well as different photographs. And over here we have yet another pinboard with different sketches of his for his house, as well as other pictures. And when you step inside this office, you just feel transported back into time when you were still working here, and it feels very magical. And of course, what he always loves to do is to paint the ceiling a different color. So here the walls are white, but the ceiling is actually in this kind of lemony, zesty yellow, and it just creates this very crisp and unexpected design. In the more private section of the house, of course, there also is a bathroom, and here you can just get a feel of how simplistic he thought and lived in some areas of his life. So this is actually Finn Juhl's former bathroom. It's a tight and narrow space that is completely clad with white tiles. There's a large window that just lets the gorgeous light and outside forest flood into the space. But other than that, it's a super minimal area. There's a very simple sink, a simple bathtub, and a small mirror. And I think that it's really fascinating that he created these living rooms and sleeping areas that are absolutely works of art. But when it comes, for example, to the kitchen or the bathroom, he had a much more simplistic and minimalist approach. I hope you liked this video. I'm super thankful that we had the incredible opportunity to visit the Finn Juhl's house and to also share it with you. So I would be super thankful if you could comment below and give this video a like, just so it can reach even more people. If you like this video, you will love this one over here.